What's up, YouTube? Today we're going to be looking at the Ultra League, and the team that we're going to be taking a look at today is Shadow Swampert, Giratina Altered, and Corviknight. Obviously, Corviknight and Swampert as a mud boy cover each other's weaknesses super well. Corviknight is only weak to fire and electric. Swampert is only weak to grass, which is double resistant on Corviknight, and Swampert resists fire and electric, as well as it can hit fire for super effective damage. And we're actually not opting for Earthquake, where we're going to be running Sludge on the Swampert, and then Giratina is just a bulky safe swap for this team. With two bulky Pokemon in the back, we can usually use most of our shields on Swampert. So without further ado, let's take a look at battles. Alright, in the first match, we've got Shadow Swampert into Weezing. This is a fantastic lead. Mudshot is super effective. My opponent safe switches into a Feraligatr. I'm going to stay in just so I can throw the Sludge. Sludge does get some nice chip there, and now we're going to meet them with our Giratina. They do have enough for an Ice Beam here, but I am going to let it go, and it's actually just a crunch. Opponent opting not to run an Ice Beam in this meta, kind of surprising. I think if you run Feraligatr, I still think it's better to always run Ice Beam. It's just so good. They come back in with the Weezing, only to be met with a Shadow Sneak from the Giratina. So Giratina already doing great on the safe switch here. We already have the Weezing down nearly into the yellow, and we've maintained switch, which is huge, and my opponent reveals they are running Brutal Swing. They then come in with the Lapras, so I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to throw the Sludge and then get out into my Corviknight, because this actually puts it in potentially one charge move range, maybe not. I was going to say one charge move range and a farm down, but Corviknight hits like a wet noodle, and these charge moves, even though they're nuke moves, are both pretty bad. Yeah, you're gonna need two of those. This is not the Great League, this is the Ultra League. But my opponent is gonna fire back with the Sparkling Aria. I will show that up because Corviknight has play into both of the remaining two Pokemon, especially now that we've seen Brutal Swing. They then come back with a Weezing. They're sniping, but this can only be a Brutal, unless they're on Brutal Swing Overheat, but then they'd have to lower their attack. So now we can finally connect with a Sky Attack, maybe grabbing a shield back. That's exactly what happens. In comes the Swampert. We will be met with a Brutal Swing, but we can live one, so that is no problem here. Brutal Swing does about 50% of what we've got left, and they actually already make it to a Brutal Swing. Again, I overfarm here a little bit too much, but I'm just kind of watching for a catch. I'm at the back-to-back moves. My opponent makes a really nice catch onto their Lapras, but this is still going to be enough to KO from this range. And yes, you should go for a Sludge here, but I'm just going for the Hydros because even a resisted Hydro from this range will pick up the knockout, and now I can switch into my Corviknight. I can take this move. It will knock me out, but now I have super effective mud shots, which are stab, which get the farm down, and we are able to take that win on 1 HP. Lapras on the lead in the next match. This is a negative lead because the opponent can just go for stab Sparkling Arias or an Ice Beam just to win this matchup. Whereas Swampert is running non-stab Sludge, and while Sludge is a good move, it's not great when it's non-stab. They do end up going for the Ice Beam, maybe potentially going for an Ice Beam and a full farm down. So I'm not going to let that happen. I'm going to switch into my Giratina. I will let it go. I can live it. Giratina is very bulky, so I'm not too worried about it. It does about 50%, and in comes Tinkaton. So there's really no point for my opponent to throw that energy when they have such a hard answer. So we actually waste a lot of energy there, and that's exactly what Giratina is supposed to do. And because Giratina plays more like a ghost type than a dragon, we're actually able to get this Tinkaton into the yellow, and they're forced to throw their energy. They probably just go for a Bulldoze and a farm down here, and that's okay because that means we can make it to another Shadow Sneak. And now Giratina has put this Tinkaton into the red health, which is absolutely crazy. Now we're going to come in with the Corviknight, go for a full Sand Attack farm down because we resist all of the charge moves of the Tinkaton. Bulldoze and Play Rough are all resisted, so just going to let everything go. And then we're going to have a 2-shield up energy Corviknight for whatever is in the back. Can we get the full farm down? Yes, we can. That is huge. What are they going to do? They're going to come back with a Lapras. They're going to force my energy. That's okay. Here comes a Sky Attack that picks up the knockout. What's in the back? It is a Galarian Weezing, and Galarian Weezing will instantly be met with another Sky Attack before they even can get to their first move. And once we grab that shield, I'm going to pivot into the Swampert. This actually forces them to throw their energy, or we got to catch, I'm not sure. But they throw that energy, and then we still have 2 shields and a Corviknight against a Fairy. Of course, this Fairy is running Brutal Swing, which is neutral, but it is non-stab, so it looks like we can live one of those, which is nice because we're going to need to shield the rest of these up, and we're going to need to make it to back-to-back Sky Attacks because they have a shield. Of course, these Sand Attacks are adding up. It is super effective damage, and Sand Attack doesn't do that much damage, but to the Weezing, they are chipping a little bit, and we just have to hope that they put them in range for 1 Sky Attack to KO, because I'm not running Iron in this matchup. You see me over farming as much as possible right before they get to their last Brutal Swing, and Sky Attack is enough to pick up the knockout, and we are able to take that win. Okay, Swampert into Fortress. This is an okay lead. It's neutral now that they're running Bug Bite. As you can see, these Bug Bites add up quite a bit, but I can get to a Hydro before they can even get to the Earthquake. My opponent doesn't even go up to the Earthquake. They only go for a Rock Tomb. However, that does lower my attack. And I believe I learned in this matchup, if you let them get to a Rock Tomb first, 2 Hydros are actually not enough to KO if they debuff you with a Rock Tomb. So maybe my opponent knew that, which is why they threw it right away. Can we get the full farm down? Looks like not quite before they'd make it to another charge move. So I'm forced to throw this Hydro to pick up the knockout, and we are able to take that in the zeros. And it's a Bellibolt in the back. And this Bellibolt is actually on Thundershock, it looks like. So their fast move is also resisted here. And these Dragon Claws are going to come super fast. Everything from their charge moves are definitely resisted because Bellibolt can only learn electric charge moves in this matchup. So not in this matchup, just in general. So they do go for the harder hitting Zap Cannon, but they're staying in this matchup, which clues me into the fact that they're probably weak to Giratina in the back as well. But there's nothing I can really do about that because Corviknight obviously doesn't have a good matchup into an electric type. So I just have to take these Zap Cannons, going for the Dragon Claw now to pick up the knockout. Let's see, what is that Pokemon in the back? It is a Gastrodon. So actually not a terrible matchup in a Giratina. Not really sure why they stayed in that matchup, but we have the alignment that we need. We chip with a Dragon Claw. In comes the Corviknight. We are a complete wall to energy from the Gastrodon. So this game is over. I can let anything go here. It is the harder hitting Earth Power that still does absolutely nothing to the Corviknight. This is the Ultra League. We have that extra bulk and Sky Attack. He's going to grab the first shield. I'm surprised my opponent is even playing this out. I can let 2 charge moves go, still not be worried about getting farmed down here. They actually bait with a Body Slam. So here comes another Body Slam. I can live this too. So now I'm just going for the 2 shield flex on my opponent. Here comes another Sky Attack. They basically have to live this in order to win. So they end up calling it. And we do get the full Sand Attack farmed, or they will resign the match at 1 HP. And we are able to take that win. Into the next match, we've got Swampert into Blastoise. This is an okay lead because rollout is resisted. Of course, they will make it to the Hydros around the same pacing as we will. So I am going to throw the Sludge, and then I'm going to go for 1 and a catch on my Giratina. If this is a Skull Bash, that's double resisted. If it's a Hydro, it's single resisted. So either way, this is a good catch. But my opponent's going to farm back up, and they're throwing, which makes me think this is actually an Ice Beam. And it is, but I decided to let it go anyways because Giratina, it's so bulky. It's been a metastable of the Ultra League for so long for a good reason. So there's one. Here comes Cobalion into a Giratina, which is a bit of a strange play. They are clearly very weak to the Giratina. So I end up going for a catch onto my Swampert. I'm unsuccessful, do not get the Stone Edge catch. I'm really hoping that my Giratina has play into whatever is in the back. They're going to connect with now back-to-back Sacred Swords, but I can just let that go. And now here comes a Hydro. Obviously, these Mud Shots are super effective, so they will put it in Hydro range. And what's in the back? It's a Virizion, so that makes sense as to why my opponent couldn't come into a Giratina safe switch. They were extremely soft to Giratina, but we also have Corviknight, and Corviknight has double super effective Sky Attack for the Virizion. So all we have to do here is take these charge moves and watch for a catch. We can live 2. Am I going to want to live 2? It looks like yes. I'm going to let the next one go. Just looking for the switch. They do not go for it. So now going to pick up the knockout with the Sky Attack. Double super effective damage, nearly 1 shots. And now I can come in with my Giratina, and I can fire off the energy that we stored earlier. Here comes one Shadow Sneak, and if my opponent doesn't throw, I'm going to make it to another one. And at this point, do I end up shielding? No, because they're in Sand Attack farm down range, and I have 2 shields, so I can just respect anything here. Go for the full Sand Attack farm down, come out with energy loaded for the Blastoise, and we will be in a great position. Of course, they do have that 1 HP Virizion in the back, but once we see that rollout go through, just going to click the move. Sky Attack will pick up the knockout, so my opponent resigns the match, and we are able to take that win. Into next match, we've got Swampert into Skeleturge. This is a fantastic lead for the Swampert. They safe switch into a Sand Slash, and I respond with Corviknight. The reason I do this, instead of just staying in with the Swampert, which I probably should have done, I probably should have stayed in with the Swampert and chipped or grabbed a shield with the Hydro, is that I don't really need alignment if I switch my Corviknight into the Sand Slash, because obviously once we eliminate this Sand Slash, whether we win alignment or not, it doesn't really matter. So my opponent will fire off all their energy. They're going to be energy dry, so I just let this go. We'll have Giratina for the Skeleturge, and now we have Swampert for the Sand Slash, and we get a huge energy lead. So it kind of just is about what is in the back, and it's a Greninja. So being up energy here and having the Greninja on my Swampert is actually more ideal than previously, because Greninja on my Giratina, obviously a Dark against a Ghost, is not a good answer. So now just going to fire off a second Sludge, hoping my opponent just lets this go, and they do, which is huge, because now we have Giratina on the Skeleturge. As soon as my opponent sees the Giratina, they just resign the match, and we are able to take that win. Into the next match, we've got Swampert into Tentacruel. This seems like it should be a good lead, but unfortunately I'm not running Earthquake, so I'm forced to go for resisted Hydro Cannons here, while my opponent has resisted Fast Move but neutral Charge moves. So it's actually more of a neutral matchup than you might expect. Here comes a Scald that actually puts us lower than my opponent is, but what I can do here is overfarm and catch the next Scald and bank all of that energy on my Swampert to be used for later. It wasn't very useful into the Tentacruel, so hopefully it's useful for something in the back, and we actually lure out a Guzzlord. So Tentacruel, Guzzlord, very common core in the Ultra League. And will they let me get to another charge move? Looks like no, but Brutal Swing will not be enough to KO here, so I will just let this go. It's actually Dragon Claw, also not enough to KO. So here comes a super effective Dragon Claw back their way. We get them into the yellow, and now we can come in with Corviknight. They actually blind throw another Dragon Claw, so that's huge because that is resisted damage. We can take that, no problem. They can go for all of these Dragon Tails, able to make it to a Sky Attack before they're even able to make it to another charge move. Sky Attack picks up the knockout. What is in the back? Are they going to show us? No, they're not. They're actually just going to resign the match. I guess Tentacool and whatever was in the back did not want to see the Corviknight, so we are able to take that win. Neutral lead in the next match. Loads of lag. I don't know about you guys, but the last couple days in the Ultra League, or not even just the Ultra League, just in the game in general in PvP, it has been so laggy, like way more laggy than normal. I know lag is very normal in the Go Battle League, but not as much as I was getting in these matchups. But either way, able to connect with the Hydro. It looks like I can get to another, so my opponent is forced to throw. That would have been the CMB tie and I would have won, but that's actually okay because now I can just come in with the Corviknight, get a full Sand Attack farm down, and take virtually no damage in return. They end up coming in with a Tentacruel, so my opponent is clearly core broken by the Corviknight. They will fire off a charge move right away. It is the Scald. Looks like it doesn't get the lowering of attack, which is nice because this Sky Attack is neutral damage, and these Sand Attacks will add up just a little bit more than the Poison Stings from my opponent's end, which are double resisted. Although they're doing basically the same amount of damage because Sand Attack is a very bad move. That said, I will shield up the second because I think I can get a full Sand Attack farm down here, and the fact that they came in to a Corviknight with a Tentacruel clues me into the fact that they're weak in the back, and that they are. They have a Virizion in the back, so here comes a complete wall to Virizion and Giratina, and we are able to take that win. Bellibolt on the lead, finally finding our target, and my opponent is staying in. That is incredible. They are clearly core broken by the Swampert. Here comes the first Hydro Cannon at my opponent. They actually let that go, kind of surprising. But now we can just let this go because we know it is resisted. It is just the parabolic charge. They did throw on CMP, which is why you see me over farming as much as I can here, throwing on the CMP tie. Will my opponent let this go? They will. What is in the back? It is a Dusk Noir, and I do not have a great answer for Dusk Noir in the back, especially a Dusk Noir up energy. Fortunately, we do grab a shield, but now I decide I can come in with my Corviknight, and I can take these charge moves no problem. Obviously, they're neutral as opposed to super effective on my Giratina, but I'm going to make a crazy play here. I'm going to go for a switch right as they make it to the dynamic punch. They have no reason to go for the dynamic punch, but they do, and we catch a double resisted dynamic punch onto the Giratina. They end up going for a Dragon Claw catch onto their Tinkaton, but I hold on to my energy. I'm now able to make it to a Shadow Sneak, and Shadow Sneak will connect. I'm actually able to make it to a second Shadow Sneak. Oh, say that 5 times fast. And this actually puts the Tinkaton into the yellow health range. And now I'm thinking I just have to use my shields on Giratina, and I can get this Tinkaton pretty low. I end up going for a Play Rough catch onto my Corviknight and banking that energy on my Giratina. And I do not have a charge attack for the Tinkaton, so I'm forced to go for a Sky attack and a full Sand attack farm down. Of course, everything is resisted here, so I will let that go. It looks like 2 Play Roughs from this range are not enough to KO, so definitely gonna let the second one go, and then I'll come out with a charge move loaded for the Dusk Noir. Didn't think I'd get to the payback, but I actually did. But I end up throwing the Sky attack. Doesn't matter, my opponent shields anyways, and they do get the full farm down, but that's okay because we banked some energy on the Giratina, and Giratina will be able to pick up the knockout with a Shadow Sneak from this range. Shadow Sneak is super effective damage, so picking up the knockout on the Dusk Noir, in comes the Tinkaton, able to get to another Shadow Sneak, and this will pick up the knockout on the Tinkaton. Giratina is a Tinkaton counter confirmed. Into the next match, we've got Swampert into Primeape. This is a tough lead because if this opponent gets really ramped up, we're in a tricky situation. They do farm up to the close combat, but I'm going to call it bait. It is the Rage Fist bait, and now here comes a Hydro Cannon. Hydro Cannon from this range will do massive damage, so my opponent does actually shield that, and now I'm going to instantly pivot into my Giratina before they can ramp up too much. Here comes a second Rage Fist from my opponent. I'm going to be forced to throw here nearly right away because my opponent has lightning fast pacing with the Primeape, and it looks like 2 will be enough to KO. They actually commit both shields. You see me over farming here, and that's because I'm playing to the CMP tie on when they get to the back-to-back moves. That way they cannot switch out and save this energy, and they will be we won't take that second charge move without giving up a second shield, and they won't be able to save their Primeape for later. So I think that was a pretty good play, and now I'm able to make it to another Dragon Claw against the Lapras that comes in, and now I'm going to pivot into my Corviknight. What is in the back? They do not want to show me whatever was in the back was weak, so they will just resign the match. Terrible lead in the next match. Going to safe switch into my Giratina because we have 2 better answers in the back, and my opponent responds with Bellibolt. Now normally an electric type into a dragon doesn't seem like a great response, but this opponent does have Sucker Punch on their Bellibolt, which is the recommended moveset on PvPoke, and that allows them to hit for super effective fast move damage. However, Giratina is extremely bulky, and Sucker Punch is non-stab on the Bellibolt, so even though they raise their defense with that parabolic charge, Giratina is still going to make this matchup extremely close. It looks like Giratina is going to make it to another Dragon Claw, and unless they full send a Zap Cannon, they will not be able to pick up the knockout. They just go for another parabolic charge, which means I can make it to another Dragon Claw, and even though they've raised their defense, this will be them very low, so they end up shielding that, going for the full farm down. That's okay, because all of their charge moves are still walled on the Swampert. They actually not even end up throwing their energy, and that allows me to switch instantly into my Corviknight, catching a double resisted Leaf Blade on the Virizion that comes back in. They're going to farm all the way back up to that charge move and go for a catch of their own onto a Tentacruel. Tentacruel will instantly be met with a Sky attack, and this Tentacruel is actually on acid, so I have to be wary about that when I'm making my counts here. They're already at enough for a Scald now, but my opponent actually farms up all the way to a Blizzard. So you know what? I'm going to shield this in case it is the Hail Mary, and it actually is. It's the Hail Mary Blizzard, and now I know they're energy dry, so I switch into my Swampert. I know I'm just going to have to sacrifice it because they have a Leaf Blade loaded on the Virizion, so I may as well sack it with a super effective Sludge, and that's exactly what's going to happen. This forces them to throw their energy. They do have a lot of residual energy banked, but we have a Corviknight with double super effective sky attacks, and all we have to do is get to 2 of them. But my opponent has so much energy here, you're going to see that they're going to get 2 back-to-back moves before I can even get to my second sky attack, and that could be a problem. I will have to basically live a Sacred Sword, but I will shield the first. Do they have enough for the second? They do. Can Corviknight live this? We are very, very bulky. We have a great rank Corviknight, and it holds on 1 HP, able to make it to the sky attack that picks up the knockout on the Risen, and we are able to take that win. Into the final match of the video, Swampert into Nidoqueen. This is a fantastic matchup for the Swampert. My opponent is going to safe switch into a Guzzlord, and they are instantly going to be met with Corviknight. Corviknight has a great matchup here because we resist the Dragon Claws, and the best charge move that they can go for are the Brutal Swing or Crunch. And my opponent immediately shows that they are running Brutal Swing, which is fantastic because 2 sky attacks plus the sand attacks will be enough to KO, whereas 3 Brutal Swings are not enough to pick up the knockout onto the Corviknight. Corviknight is so bulky here, and we pace pretty similarly to the Guzzlord. It is straight 12 to these Brutal Swings here, and I can actually live this. This will put me deep into the red, but it will not give them the ability to farm down, and that actually just limits the farm of their Nidoqueen on the lead. It actually turns out to be a Pangoro in the back, but Pangoro is now going to be met with a sky attack. This is super effective damage. They have to shield this. In comes the Swampert because I cannot put a Giratina onto a dark type loaded with energy. They do actually full Sunny Close Combat. I'm watching for the catch here. They do not go for it. So now I'm going for a Hydro Cannon. This will be enough to pick up the knockout, but my opponent does shield it back up. I will respect another Close Combat. We have Swampert to close out this game against the Nidoqueen. I'm going to overfarm here. Now going for the Hydro because they did bait with the Night Slash. So would get to that next charge move pretty quick. In comes the Nidoqueen. I'm going to overfarm just a little bit. Now going for the Hydro, trying to throw off my opponent's counts. But either way, as soon as that Hydro connects, this game is over. Even if they full send the Earth Power to pick up the knockout, we have a full HP Giratina left, and Poison Sting is resisted, so we get the full farm down, and we are able to take that win. So yeah, that is Sludge, Swampert, hunting for Bellibolts. We only saw a few, but this team with Giratina and Swampert together really hunts down those Bellibolts and really shuts them down. The team was overall very strong. This is a very classic line of Mudboy plus Steel Flyer. You could think of Swampert and Skarmory. That was an old core that was absolutely everywhere. Dragon in the middle as your safe swap, covers with the weaknesses of both Pokemon, resist grass, electric, and fire. So really great as a safe swap. And then Giratina just super bulky. Corviknight super bulky, just dealing with the fact that they can take charge moves and while Swampert cannot. But yeah, that's going to be it for me from this video. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, peace.